No. Yes.
Duncan, are we live?
Duncan's live.
Right now. Yes. All right, we are reconvening our continued session from Tuesday, February 1st, 2022, and the time is 5:03 p.m. So council, we have agenda items still that we didn't cover. I'd like to start with agenda item number 10. Consider an act on an award of a bid to Arasuka Robinson in an amount not to exceed $49,993 to complete the Parks and Open Space Plan and creation of an ad hoc committee to facilitate the final recommendations to council. So I believe the backup included this, but P&E reviewed this at their last meeting, and they were two applicants or two people who submitted responses. This is the response that was scored the highest, as well as, and so there was a recommendation. There's an additional recommendation that's part of the backup, which is for the creation of an ad hoc committee comprised of representations from each of the different streets, is what they discussed and voted on, and also that's what got recommended to council. So both of those are for consideration. You know, certainly the award puts us on a timeline to start, you know, working with this consultant, but then it's a matter of who do we want to engage and direct their energy towards. And if it's not an ad hoc committee, then it should be assigned to either committee or to council or to appropriate staff. So that's where the discussion starts. And staff, if there's any other supporting material, I know Carolyn, you were at the P&E discussion and you're part of that too. Hopefully I summarized that correctly.
Yeah, no, I think you got that correct. The committee did score the presentations. They scored Asakura Robinson at a clear, they clearly chose that as the recommendation. And they also had recommended an ad hoc committee, which I believe council has discussed before at one point in time. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We did put in kind of a little bit of information for the ad hoc committee structure just to give it a little more meat to the bones that kind of P&E put together. And so that's kind of what we presented here today. So I think we've, if there's any questions, we'd be glad to answer those.
So starting with Councilmember Reitz, and then Councilmember Rosengarten, and then Councilmember Johnson, I think.
You know, I just have a few little comments. First of all, I think that's fine. I want to go with planning and environmental's recommendation. The issue that I have, or my concern that I have, is dealing with the fact that they did the Uplands concept plan, which is now sitting on a shelf.
Correct.
The problem, and there's a lot of issues with that. There's two I want to point out. Okay. One is in the park precedents on page 19, it says, it talks about park size does not preclude inclusion of a swimming pool facility, blah, blah, blah. Indeed, when it became clear during this process that many residents shared an interest in a swimming pool facility at the Uplands, the planning team studied it, and they basically decided, because there was no precedent, and historically there's been very little support, the planning team decided not to pursue that. And what I want to make sure is that if our residents want a swimming pool or pickleball court or whatever it is, that this group is not going to say, well, I don't know, that they actually give it to our city to decide on what to do. The other thing that I was really disappointed, and this is really, I think, the reason this is sitting on a shelf, is because they came up with this concept plan and they weren't open to other alternatives. They have one page. This is an 82 beautiful document that's dedicated to their concept, but they have one page of alternative scenarios, and that was a strip mall, a restaurant, and something else. I can't remember what the other one was. But it was like one little page, and it's like you didn't even evaluate all of those other options. And so I don't want a very narrowly focused group that comes in. So I'm very concerned about that. And I think the ad hoc committee will be helpful with that. And the other thing I want to see on the ad hoc committee is different age groups. I want some young families as well as seniors.
Okay, yeah.
So,
And I can address a little bit of that. So with the Uplands Concept Plan, I would say they were defined by the RFQ, and the RFQ was to come up with a park plan for the uplands, basically. And so I think that's why some of those other options weren't as explored as deeply as they may have been should have been. And in this case, this is supposed to be kind of all options on the table kind of needs assessment. So this should be an open forum for every idea to be able to be heard and be able to be considered. And what I liked about what they're providing too is they're coming up with 3 options that's going to have different pieces, and so then it gets narrowed down to what will be one option.
yeah.
And the other part, when I talk to all of the potential applicants, is that I really wanted something that's going to be actionable as well. So that something as I said to them, I was like, we've got some great plans, but they're sitting on a shelf, like you said, and we don't want that again. We want something that we can work from and actually work toward. So that's the goal.
Yeah, and I think the probably thing you have to worry about is if you get some people on that committee that have been here a long time and they have strong opinions of the way things have always been kind of thing, and try to influence the committee that way, because committees can be influenced.
Oh, yeah.
And I just want this to be a very open process where we hear all sorts of ideas. It's a creative process, and we come up with some solutions that our host city will be proud of.
Yes.
So,
And I like that idea. I want it to be exactly something that where all voices are heard and everybody gets to be a part of it. And you're right, people can influence. I mean, I know that's one of the things the idea of groupthink and people kind of moving toward, we want to avoid that. We want to be able to make sure all of those opinions are included. And so we should be getting the raw data and everything as part of this process.
Yep.
So we want it to be very open so that, everybody gets a chance to be heard and we get, and as when I said something else to all the applicants here, I was like, we tend not to do some things because we haven't considered everything. This is our chance to consider all things and all opinions.
Yep.
And so that's what we really want.
and with that, I'm happy to make a motion to accept their bid for the open Parks and Open Space Plan.
Do you also want to include in that motion the creation of an ad hoc committee?
With the creation of an ad hoc committee that consists of members from all different parts of our city as well as different age groups.
Okay. So the motion is to accept the award of the bid to the Arisco Robinson with the creation of an ad hoc committee per the conditions described. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Rosengarten seconds. So further discussion on this item? Mayor Pro Tem, and then, I'm sorry, Councilmember Rosengarten, you had your hand raised earlier. And
I wanted to say, last night I was hoping to talk about number 10 before talking about 6405 Brody Lane, because if it didn't go to where everybody agreed that that was a project for that site, it would have been a nice opportunity to say, folks, have you considered any other property in Sunset Valley? Anybody remember me asking that last night? It's because there are other properties in Sunset Valley that might be a great fit. Uplands, what did we talk about in the past for the Uplands? Music, farm-to-table venue, restaurant. I thought, wow, that would be a great idea. They don't have to buy the land. They could rent the land from the city. It's just another idea, another venue. And I was, like I said, I was hoping this would be discussed before that so I could bring that up and we could talk about that a little bit, not forcing them, just hinting, and then go into that in case there was nobody willing to allow it where it was. Thank you.
We did actually have that conversation with them, Councilmember
Did you?
Rosengarten, early on about an alternative spot and if they were amenable to perhaps a lease or something like that on another piece of city property, specifically the Uplands. And they were looking more for a fee simple property that they were going to own.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I was looking this and this proposal for request for qualifications. So at this moment, they choose this company that was working in 2017. I think sometimes it's very difficult to compare. 2017 was coming as a second part of the big investment that we have with the facilities. When we start with the facilities in 2015, and 2014 with a little money, 2015, and very effective, the 16 and 17. So at that time, all the city was working with facilities. Only one group was always concerned about uplands. But I remember, because I attend some of the meetings, and they were in this building, and we had very, very good opportunity to express what do we want. And I remember when they presented that was incredible, was very good. But uplands always had some political part. It was not that you want to have that, was some division if the people they supported or no. So looking in that way, I think that the procedures and the ideas, I had a lot of ideas and I wrote that, but perhaps only I was one of the meetings. I didn't attend the second and later with the third, and I lost. So, but they gave it to us the opportunities to express how we want to have that project. Now, looking at this moment, this town, because the last survey, that this is critical, the last survey that we have was in 2017. So in 2017 was, if I remember, over 55 years, was almost more than 60% of the people. So the people was in this town, no, with low age. So what happened, sometimes the feelings, they are different. And the people, the population, now the population that now we have is a little, day by day, new population with young people and kids. So this is true that now all of these will be different. But if the community, they don't participate, the leaders, they will do orientation to what do they want. Because perhaps if you don't have no participation. So I think that, in my opinion, we need to be sure that this time we try to bring the people, and listen the people. And if we have some schedules, we need to be sure that they participate. Looking in this case about the ad hoc committee, so they have Brody, Stern, and Countrywide Line as a one group, one person. And later they have Curly Mesquite and Jones Road. I don't understand why they have that as another person.
There, Councilmember Carmona, we fixed that. There was a mistake on that. If you don't have it online, but we did fix that, and it's now, yeah, it's on the online version, so.
Can we see that on the screen?
Yes, and so it's the Villas as one, the Meadows is listed, Brody, Stearns, Country, White, and Jones. And the reason we put those together is because some of those streets may only have one resident. Some of those streets may have more, but trying to get full participation from every one of those streets may be difficult.
Yeah.
There's just fewer residents to choose from who may be willing to volunteer. Because it's a volunteer effort, so we have to make sure they're available. So in Oakdale, somehow we missed it on the first one. That was corrected, though.
Okay.
I'd like to see it.
Page 114. Oh,
This page number 2, page number 2, and
No,
Mr. Chair,
No, page number 2 of number 10,
page number 2,
but he's going to 140
I don't know why.
because he's got the whole agenda scanned in one. Yeah. Okay, Brody's done. Okay, got it. All right. Because I looked online and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, it's right there. Was Brody, Stearns, Country, White, and Jones as one area, Oakdale, Lone Oak, and then these are the different streets that are in those areas, the Meadows and then the Villas. Those are the kind of the 5 main kind of
Yeah.
areas there.
Yes.
Well, when I was looking, you have the number of houses for the street. So if we are looking that we call Old Town, we are with almost 120 houses. So if that represents one person, it's different than in other places where you have only perhaps 40 people.
Right.
So, well, then I try to say this, if we try to do this since now, in order to avoid later misunderstanding, it's not a bad idea to have some idea by houses, who lives, how many houses. And we have the book and the city has how many houses they are. So if in this case, that we call Old Town, has so many houses, because they need to have a little more representation. So that is how I feel.
So I can amend the motion to say the ad hoc committee should be a balanced committee that represents the city equally throughout the city. Is that
yeah.
okay? Is that wording okay?
No, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman?
Please go ahead.
I have the table and I am reading that. And reading that, I believe that now we need to be very careful to be clear that needs to be the number of people according with the number of houses, and more or less, if we have that, we pass one part. In the second part, then I am looking about ideas and opinions. I think that now we need to publish more that. Now we have OpenGov, and OpenGov gave it to us a much better idea to bring that to the public. So from 2017 to 2022 is a big difference. So in communication, I think that we advance a lot, and we can bring more people to participate, and that will have the influence on what kind of product we will have. But it's important at this moment that we don't need to wait more for that parks and open space plan. It's necessary since years ago. So I support that, but telling you, I want that if we will compare, we compare different things. And if we will compare them, some of the projects, they are inside of the shell. Well, last year we have another project that was Cougar Creek, and it's on the shells. Why? Because it's $5 million. We cannot spend $5 million with that. So we have to compare at this moment, what is that? And this is not too much money, and it's necessary for the city.
So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilmember Litchfield and then Councilmember Rosengarten, I saw your hands raised. Did you want to speak?
Oh, I was just going to mention that in the text above the list, it says a special effort will be, or an eye toward balancing geographical distribution in the city. Because precisely to your concern, some streets have different number of people on them. So the way that this language came together was that let's make sure that we balance it. And let's make sure that we hit each of these 5 areas. So we will definitely get 5, will be 1 from each. And then the rest of those 6, we need to use our discretion when we're choosing from the pool of volunteers. But I don't want to like tie our hands right now and say there has to be, 1 person from each of these streets, and maybe nobody applies from that street. So it's to make sure that we do get distribution, but we're not like overly constricting ourselves as we actually choose committees from the volunteers. But yes, that concern is 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Rosengart.
Councilmember Reeds had her hand up earlier. Did you
Oh,
want to?
did you? I'm
No,
sorry.
I was just trying to wrap this up, and we would add the geographical distribution to the motion also. So.
Is that amenable to a second?
Call to motion.
And then I would,
Yeah, that was part of her original motion.
Yeah, okay, and call to motion, or call to.
Call the question.
Call to question, that's what it is.
All right, I love this part because that means we have to vote on calling the question. Procedurally, when somebody calls a question, you have to vote on whether you're ready to call the question. So
Correct.
all those in favor of calling the question, which means that we're not voting on the actual motion, we're just voting on whether we're going to proceed immediately to vote on the actual motion. All those in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, now we are going to vote on the actual motion. The motion is to award to Aristotle Robinson the Open Space Parks Plan RFQ, with the creation of an ad hoc committee that is a balanced representation of our city geographically and age, and age distribution. So
Yes.
those are both key components.
Eight.
And with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Councilmember Johnson, you had your hand raised?
For after the vote.
All right, we're done. We passed that item. Now we're on to your question.
I'd like to make a motion to table item number 11 and move into, we have
Let's
35
hurry up.
minutes
It
for
is,
two things.
mine,
and
He's the
take-
only
mine is
one.
really quick in terms of like
This is
what.
yours?
Yes.
I pulled it from consent.
Withdraw it.
Otherwise, I'm done with it.
So-
I've been at the meetings.
So, Council, the reason I pulled this is because I felt it was relevant to our discussion about budget. This item is a CIP that we have in our current budget plan, targeted at $150,000. We are, with this task order, and that included $20,000 of design fees. With this task order, we are saying we are now upping that to $45,000 of design fees with our engineering group, because we're anticipating that the project is going to be bigger than the $150,000. I just want council to keep in mind that we are not making a budget adjustment tonight or amendment tonight to increase that because we do not have a final cost of the project. But this is one of the ways that we need to keep track of cost is by taking an action and saying we are authorizing a task order for $45,000. That's more than twice what we have budgeted right now for the design portion, even though we have more than enough money in our budget for this item, so we don't have to make an adjustment. So I just want to make sure that that's a clear point, because we are approving a task order tonight. We are saying, engineers, $45,000 is the limit of your task order. We had originally planned for that to be $20,000. We're not making a budget amendment. We have to keep track of these things. So if there's a different process that people want to use, we can do it, but certainly this doesn't require a budget amendment, but I want everybody to be aware that when we make these kind of changes, we are authorizing the engineer to do this work, and we're doubling what we have in our current budget for that task. So with that, Councilmember, or Mayor Pro Tem Carmona?
Yeah, look, I am the sponsor for this. And why? In Public Works, we had a meeting last month. And in that meeting came to discussion about that line. And the point was that the city or the staff didn't provide that to the council to authorize that project. And we say, because they were waiting for recommendation. So I say, no, we made a recommendation since November. So since November, they needed to post it in order to the engineers to start working with that. When they put that last week, they tried to put with budget of 22, 23. And I say no, because that is part of the CIP in the budget for 21, 22. So it needs to be according with the budget. They were agree, the staff. So at this moment, the same with the other 3 projects of Lone Oak and other 2 more than we have, we approve engineering. And this is the same to the other projects. Only we approve then they need to start working with this project. Now, that doesn't mean that they will spend the $45,000 now, because the project will take 15 months. So they need to allocate part of that cost in the project. So that is the intention of this. I don't know if it's clear.
I just want to point out that we are exceeding what we had predicted for this from a design portion, and we're giving the engineer authorization to spend up to $45,000, whether it's this year or spread out over multiple years, right? Because it's really contingent on how fast the work gets done. They could spend it, I mean, I don't know, if it's an engineering project that spans multiple years, it will, of course, hit different budget periods. However, maybe they can accelerate that, and maybe it all gets spent this budget year. We've given them authorization to do so up to $45,000, which is more than what we budgeted for. So I just want to make sure that that's understood. That's the point I wanted to make in terms of pulling this item and before we voted on it.
Yeah.
And that's where I wanted to go.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, in the CIP that we approve, we put $150,000 for one project. So that project, the engineers, they wrote $45,000 will take all the project, not the design, all the project, the 15 months. So in this case, if we authorize, we say, start with the project, and they can start with the project. So the first part of the project is design and presentation to TCEQ. So that's it. So they will take almost 7 months with that part. And that doesn't mean that they will burn the $45,000. But that was that we allocate for this budget in CIP. So this is that I try to be clear.
Yeah, and I understand that. Overall, the project is anticipated to be more than $150,000 is what we're estimating now.
150 will be the total.
What I saw in the backup was it's going to be close to $300,000 for the non-design portion of it.
No, it's $150,000.
I can ask, Carolyn.
Yes, so the $150,000 was when the project was just portions of 290 to be repaired. In that meeting we had in November, we showed you how the line does not have the correct slope. There's a lot of problems throughout the entire line that have to be corrected so that the line conveys wastewater in the way it should. That means we are replacing the entire line. So if you go down to the engineering report, it is, let me go down on mine real quick. The total project will be $284,000. And remember, those are estimates. So we won't know the actual cost until we go to bid on the project and we get actual project bids. So yes, as the mayor has pointed out, the design fees went up because the project has expanded to over twice the size what was estimated. So when the original estimate was created, we did not have the cammering and we did not know the depth of the line and the slope of the line was as bad as it was. We got that information. That's when we came back and say, hey, we can't just do a patch job. It's not going to fix the problem. We have to replace the entire line. So that's where we were at.
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem and then
Okay.
Councilor Rosigan and then Councilor Reeds.
Again, Mr. Mayor, if you say that at this moment, why you didn't wrote that in this paper?
That's what I was talking about. Well, it's in all the backup materials right there. We had talked about that. It's in all the backup materials. It's page 3 of 9 of all the backup materials.
The $280,000.
And it does say in the backup material that this will increase the cost of the project because we are increasing the scope. And that was what we were getting at because we won't be able to know the final cost until later in the year.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember, so again, you're using a paper packet. This was hyperlinked in the packet. Apologies. This is why we like you to use digital packets. But so the documents are here. They were hyperlinked in the within the
So
cover
it
page.
might be, I might recommend that we maybe bring this one back if we want to look into this further. I don't think there's a time critical component, is there, Sylvia, in terms of this, the engineering task order? Okay, so I'd recommend, because it sounds like we'll need a little bit more discussion based on, the research, that we table this item and we move to executive session. So all those in favor of tabling this item say, I didn't make a motion yet. Rob made the motion. Is there a second to table this item? Councilmember Reed.
I will second.
All those in favor of tabling this item to bring back to a future council meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, so we're going to table this item, and then I need a motion to move to executive session. All those in favor say aye. Oh, sorry. Just want to do it. All right, I need a motion to move to executive session.
Motion, we move into executive
going.
session. That's all I need to say, right?
So moved, yeah, you can say. In a second, okay, got moved in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Thank you. We are just going to be concluding our meeting, so I just need a motion to adjourn.
Is
Yes.
there something we need to do here to call a meeting between now and the 15th? Or is
So-
that something that can happen?
My understanding, and I have had to review the ordinance, if there's 2 members of council that wish to call a special meeting, then we would start a special meeting process, which is basically trying to find a date, publishing the fact that we have a notice, which takes 3 days, right? So we have to do it 3 days ahead of time. So if there's at least 2 members of council that want a special meeting between now and the 15th, then we can call one.
I'm one of those.
You're one of those? Well, let's work it out over email so we can schedule it.
Okay.
And we'll make sure that we can find a date that works for everybody, okay? All right,
Motion to adjourn?
there's a motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second. Oh, let
All right.
Wanda take it, I don't care.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, we are adjourned at 6:01 PM. Thanks all.
Yeah, we still have amendment number 2 to get done.